there's a real sense of us. There's a real sense of pride that we represent not just ourselves but the city, and we represent not just Toronto Football Club but Toronto sports. Together we come together to again represent something much bigger, and obviously we're incredibly lucky that we have a huge Toronto FC following. But when you get to this point in the season, there's a huge Toronto sports following, and that carries over from the other sports.
A balmy, windy, chilly day. Gareth Wheeler and I are braving the elements here today up at the Kia training grounds. You can see that the Seattle Sounders are partaking in their first training session in Toronto. They landed in the 6 just last night, chartering over here, and there was an MLS press conference that was taking place earlier today, so let's get into that. There's a couple thoughts that we wanted to pick out on that. Greg Vanney in particular talking about how this is a championship city. They've been dying for a moment like this, and he says this is all that we've been thinking about all year long, even stemming all the way back to preseason.
Yeah, it wasn't just Greg Vanney. I thought that Josie Altidore, you just watched the Michael Bradley clip off the top speaking about Toronto. I thought it was poignant. I thought it was absolutely fitting to what this city and what these franchises are experiencing with one another. I thought they were all very well spoken today. It's just in terms of breaking down the game, Danielle, we've heard it all before. Like, we've been here for a week, and you can tell that the guys just want to get on with it. They want the game to be here. But it was a good chance for the American media and other traveling media specifically to ask their first questions to Toronto FC.
Well, as Michael Bradley said, there's such a brotherhood surrounding this city right now, especially with the Toronto Raptors, the Toronto Maple Leafs. I was up at the Maple Leafs practice the other day. All the players had the TFC hats on, so you can see that they're all rooting for one another. But one question that was pointed out here today, it goes back to the bloody big deal. Everyone thinks about Jermaine Defoe, but that was truly a turning point for this franchise.
100%. You're going to hear from Greg Vanney in a moment, but everyone turns back to that time and thinks that it was a flop bringing Jermaine Defoe to Toronto FC. I just don't see it to be the case whatsoever. You're right, Danielle. It was a turning point for this organization where they brought in some big name players and spent a lot of money on players to bring a top team and help creating to build a top team here. And Michael Bradley came that day, and he's still the captain. He's still the heartbeat. He's still a true leader on this team. And it led to bringing Josie Altidore to the club. It led to Sebastian Giovinco. For me, it was absolutely a watershed moment. And it's funny, I think it's a lot of people that haven't been around this team that continue to talk about it. But to people within this organization, it was a true turning point.
Michael Bradley has such an infectious attitude, work ethic. Even Jordan Morris was saying the first time that he met him at a U.S. men's national team camp, he said, I was intimidated, but once I got used to him, I warmed up to him. I learned that this is someone that I would like to emulate myself after, just the way that he carries himself. So Michael Bradley has certainly helped to revive Toronto as a soccer city.
What Michael was attracted to is the same thing that I became attracted to, which is the project of Toronto FC and trying to revitalize the soccer city that it is, to help to turn this club around to be, a bigger part of something that could be amazing. And, Michael signing on to that project, and you could see it from day one in blood, sweat, and tears and everything in between, that he was passionate and dedicated to the team and the project and to get this thing to a position of where we are now to try to win a championship and ultimately where we hope to be by the end of Saturday night.
There is a mutual respect between these two sides, and you notice that Michael Bradley said that one thing that he likes about Jordan Morris is there was so much pressure and expectation surrounding this player coming into the league, and Jordan was saying that, I never scored in my first couple games, and people were willing to write me off, and he said, I learned very early in my career that you can't listen to the outside noise, just focus on what's ahead of you.
He's a 22-year-old player who's from Seattle, who's still living at home with his family, and he seems completely composed and cool with everything that's gone on. He could have elected to apply his trade in the Bundesliga, playing with Werder Bremen, that is, but instead he wanted to play for his hometown team. And I thought that he and Ozzie Alonso did a great job today. Brian Schmetzer the head coach, he's like a father figure, right? Like, he just seems like your dad or mine. It's so funny hearing him speak. But I did pick up on a couple things that he did say today. One, that Jordan Morris is still a work in progress in terms of using his left foot. So if you can keep him to the left-hand side and keep him off his right foot as much as possible, then you can reap the benefits of that. The other comment was to the head coach when he was addressing how to deal with limiting Sebastian Giovinco and Josie Altidore. He said he's going to rely upon his captain in Alonso to help limit the service into the two players. Alonso's a defensive midfield player, and I'm not sure if the Seattle back four alone can deal with the threat of those two up front. So it's just interesting just getting a little bit of an insight on what Greg Vanney and company can do to plan against Seattle.
Well, Schmetzer was saying that this is the perfect matchup. Two teams very similar, very well balanced. He said it's not just about the stars, it is about those hard workers that come to play every single day. And Schmetzer also credited the coaching staff for Toronto FC and how well they've done in order to get them to this point.
They're more than just the big three. I think if you look at that team, I think Drew Moore's inclusion, I think Will Johnson, some of those types of players have helped them in key moments. The compliment I could give to Greg and Robin would be that they're a team. And that's why I think this matchup is a good one on many different layers, because we're a team as well. So it should be a really entertaining match between two teams that believe they can win. They have stars. They have the everyday guys that put in the hard work. And, we're looking forward to a good match.
Lots of chatter out there in the Twitterverse. We posed the question to fans. We wanted to know what you guys are thinking leading into the matchup on Saturday. Well, let's start with the obvious one, the weather. It is chilly, but the good thing is that there is not going to be any snow. Michael Bradley said that when it comes down to it on Saturday, no one's going to be talking about the temperature.
No, I played in very cold temperatures, downwards, I should say, at -15. And honestly, it's more just about getting yourself loose. It's more difficult for the players coming off the bench, but it's more the wind like there is today that's a pain for this team that's training behind us. The field is heated, so even if it does snow, it won't last. It won't stay on the field. You see it happen all the time in Europe with the snow around the field, so that's not going to be a problem. I've been assured by the BMO Field grounds crew, it is the best field, outdoor field right now, north of the Carolinas, so that's not going to be a worry whatsoever. The other question that's come in is who's refereeing Saturday's match, as that oftentimes is a factor in MLS. His name is Alan Kelly, and he won the MLS Referee of the Year. He did, however, play a part in two controversial games for Toronto FC on the season. One, the sending off of Toss St. Ricketts against Orlando at home in a 0-0 draw late in the year. And it was the second game of the year in New York City against New York City FC. A handball in the box by David Villa wasn't called, and it ended up in a 2-2 draw. The ball ended up in the back of the net, Danielle. But speaking with Greg Vanney afterwards, he liked how Alan Kelly came up to him at halftime and said that he basically missed the play. There was proper communication. I know that Toronto FC respects this referee, so it's a good assignment all around. Also, I wanted to point out one of the linesmen is Joe Fletcher. He's from St. Catharines. He's Canadian. He's been the linesman for World Cup games. He's been part of refereeing crews for some of the biggest games worldwide. So it's good to have some Canadian content on the field for the MLS Cup final in terms of the refereeing ranks.
Now I know that some people are still wondering, is Sebastian Giovinco okay? Is he healthy? Is he going to play on Saturday?
He's healthy.
Yes,
he's fine.
Nothing to worry about there. Another question that was floating around, is there any other X factor that you think is really going to shine?
Well, the one thing I want to watch, and this kind of parlays into another question was asked, is how Toronto FC deals with Morris and Ladero and Valdez up front. And I think Michael Bradley is going to play a huge role in that. Obviously, he's the key man in the middle, but sometimes it happened in that Montreal series over the two legs where there was too much space between the back three and Michael Bradley. I think they're going to have to be really cognizant, not just only of the counterattack, but limiting the space between the three, especially if the wide players in Beitashour and Moro are going to push forward. Bradley's going to have to cover a lot of ground. He's used to doing that both for club and country. It shouldn't be a worry for Toronto FC.
Did we miss anything?
I don't think so. If there's anything else, hey, hit hit us up on Twitter. Make sure you keep the conversation going using the hashtag TFC Live.
Yes, my fingers are about to fall off. So if I could give you one piece of advice for Saturday, pack your mitts. You can even get those little
Bundle
heat
up.
pads that you can
Yes.
throw in. Bundle up, wear some socks, no ankle pants or anything like that. But
It's a
anyway.
good look, though. It's not very practical, D.
Yes. Coverage is going to start nice and early on Saturday, 7 o'clock to be exact, all across the TSN networks. Gareth Wheeler and Terry Dunfield will also have you covered on TSN 1050 with the radio call. We will see you then.